Hey, what's going on? I'm Brandon. This is Be the Consumer, where I'll be reviewing and talking about all kinds of cool consumer products. If you don't know, I have another channel called Be the Installer, where I've done TV unboxing, reviews, and installations for a couple of years. But there's so much more in the world other than TVs, so this is where the excitement will continue. And first up on the list is the 2022 Tesla Model Y Performance. I wanted to approach this from my specific perspective, which is a family contemplating their first EV and navigating the purchase of a Tesla, covering the things that I'm most satisfied with and things I'm still working on after just 3 weeks of ownership. So I hope this gives you a good idea of the process and of the early thoughts. Make sure to smash the like button when you find the video useful, and definitely subscribe and set the notification bell to all, as I will most definitely be covering consumer products and topics that you'll want to hear about. And let me know in the comments, are you in the market for an EV, specifically a Tesla? And what are some of the things that you're happy with or confused about? Comment below so I can address these topics in future videos. So yes, this is the 2022 Model Y Performance, obviously with the red multi-coat paint option. It comes with all-wheel drive, the 21-inch Ubertine wheels, the Pirelli sports tires, performance brakes, sports pedals, and carbon fiber spoiler. I love the carbon fiber spoiler. The Model Y Performance is definitely cool to look at, but I'm not sure all of the features were needed, which I'll talk about in a bit. But more or less, the Y or the Y Performance looked to be a sweet spot for us to enter the Tesla market, having SUVs in the past and knowing we'd be driving the kids to school and sports. Inside, the Y Performance has a lot more cabin space than you'd think. I'm 6'2" and I have another foot of head clearance above. And even sitting back quite far, the kids have a lot more room in the back over our old RAV4. I will say that the bucket seats in the front aren't that large, at least for me, and I'd wish they would even sit lower. I feel like I'm up a little too high at the lowest settings. The cargo areas are also robust. Not only do you get a solid amount of trunk space, enough to store my knee scooter and a bunch of bags for a trip, but there's also another area beneath that can hold medium-sized suitcase and a bunch of groceries. Then you have the frunk or front trunk that can even handle more goods, and I saw in one video people enjoy putting fast food in there not to stink up the cabin while riding home. Pretty good idea. We're actually considering getting a cooler to fit in there for travel, which I think would be awesome. No more leaking water inside of the car. So from the outside, the Y Performance looks sleek and stylish as a smaller crossover, but once you're inside, there's more than enough room for 5 passengers, and it feels like a much larger vehicle. Internally, we have the new AMD Ryzen chip, so the 15-inch OLED display and controls are lightning fast. And it seems like a lot of Tesla owners consider this new chip a pretty big deal. This Y Performance also comes with a new lithium-ion battery to run the interior electronics more efficiently. There were some instances of the old lead-acid battery dying and causing issues, so I'm glad to have this as well. But our Model Y Performance does not have the new Tesla 4680 batteries that may double the range from around 450K to 1,000,000 miles of total range, and that's slated to be added to the Y Performance vehicles that come out of the Giga Texas plant in late Q1. However, that might not be happening as quickly as Tesla had hoped for. I do think that that would be one thing I'd be okay waiting for, because in a few years, when we want to upgrade, this older battery style may be something other buyers want to avoid. I think in order to get a true buying experience, I need to go back and talk about the process and necessary decisions really quickly. If any particular part of the video is of less use to you, feel free to skip ahead. But I talk pretty fast, so hopefully that helps. Back in 2021, we started to consider getting an EV because we moved further from central San Diego, but decided to keep the kids in the same school. So that commute was 15 miles each way to school, then the same at pickup, and many times a third or fourth trip for sports. And I'm sure I don't need to remind anyone how those miles and correlating gas costs really add up. And right before buying the Tesla, we had a 2012 Ford F-150 FX4, and my wife had a 2015 Toyota RAV4. Driving a lot of the commuter miles in my truck in the state of California has been super expensive, and that's what finally prompted us to swing by the Tesla store. Test driving is obviously something you should do before buying any car, but getting a quick rundown and then getting the key card to go drive a Tesla on your own, it's pretty wild. Ironically, the drive was in a red Model Y Performance that we would ultimately purchase, and we had no clue where anything was. My wife and I were both excited but a bit nervous to even drive the car, and this was only a quick 15-minute drive before we had to go pick up the kids from school. So a bit rushed, but after getting shot out of a cannon a few times in the highway, and just the little things you take for granted like how quiet the interior is with great sounding speakers and amazing heated seats, we decided to put down the $250 deposit to get our place in line for a Model Y Performance. That turned out to be pretty good timing as gas prices in the spring have skyrocketed. So now it's just a matter of time. And the rest of the process of buying a Tesla was extremely easy. You just enter a bit of personal information into the app, then as it gets closer to delivery, you apply for financing, and if needed, seek their trade-in offer. This was the smoothest purchasing process of any vehicle since I've been driving. My wife wanted to make sure that I specifically tell you how much we hated sitting in a car dealership for hours while they do financing for 20 other buyers at once, and basically you spend your entire day there. And you may or may not end up buying a car. But with Tesla, it was an absolute breeze online, and it would be wise for other car companies to have a similar option. There was a slight delay with delivery. Initially, the app said February 1 to 22 or so, but then it got pushed to a March timeframe as demand grew. We also decided to change colors from white to red, but that didn't cause any additional delays. And lucky for us, we took delivery the week before spring break with a short Disney trip planned. My wife took her RAV4 up to trade-in, which Tesla offered a very fair amount for, and then she returned to surprise the kids with the red Y Performance. So with literally no Tesla experience and only the 120 volt charger, we got this Model Y Performance home, and so it begins. I want to give you a few early observations that have amazed me and note a couple of things that I should have known before wrapping up with my advice for other consumers. Obviously, the first thing that I still can't get over is the amount of power that this car has. Going 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds in the Y just hits different. It's effortless the way you can move around the road. There's no lag from when you hit the accelerator to when you start to move. The torque and responsiveness is incredible. And it's not just all acceleration. The suspension also handles super well. Yes, the tires could be a little softer, but it's the performance model, so it's doing what I would expect. Then there's the Regen Braking. This was my #1 concern after the test drive. I felt like it would be hard to get used to keeping my foot on the accelerator longer, knowing that as soon as I lifted my foot, the car would start to slow dramatically. And why not? It's the opposite of all cars I've had to date. But the reality is, the Regen Braking has become one of my favorite features. It only took me a couple of days to master, though my family may disagree, but I'm getting it and it's fantastic. You can basically time stoplights and turns pretty easily without having to use the actual brakes much at all. And when you ease off the accelerator, the car is actually using the excess energy and converting it back into battery life. Prior to having a Tesla, I didn't even think about this feature, and now it's one of my favorite things about the car. Another awesome but somewhat complex feature is the cruise control and autopilot that is now standard on all Teslas. I didn't get the full self-driving option, and I'm glad I didn't. But I was unaware that the standard autopilot was pretty robust. I'm a big fan of regular cruise control. Not a big fan of people changing their speeds constantly in the highway, making it so when you catch up to another car, you have to slam in the brakes. But I was not aware that the traffic-aware cruise control was even a feature until we took off for a couple of days to Disneyland. Unfortunately, there was a ton of traffic on the way, making a normal 2-hour trip almost 4 hours. I guess it's not a big surprise in Southern California, but I didn't really have to drive much myself. I set the cruise control to 75, and from 0 up to 75, the car stopped and started and kept better distance between us and traffic than I would have done on my own. And I was a little nervous at first, but it's pretty solid overall. And at one point I added the autopilot in as well to make it even easier. So then I'm in my lane with cameras on all sides keeping me out of danger and following at a safe distance. On autopilot, I did, in one instance, get a phantom braking issue where the car spotted danger that wasn't actually there. This happened when we approached a slight hill where there was a shadow from a bridge pier in our lane that caused the car to go from about 75 down to 55, but it quickly recovered. The only other funny observation was that as traffic merged and our lane doubled in size, the car would shift over to the center of the bigger lane until it narrowed. The one sad incident that I'm sure I deserved was that I got kicked off of autopilot for the last 50 miles of the trip because I failed to put my hands back on the wheel in time. It was a little confusing as I was trying to squeeze the steering wheel, but the autopilot wants to feel the natural tension of your hands in the wheel with regards to turning. Since then, I've also gotten kicked off of autopilot for accelerating through the max speed while in auto. You'll get a nasty take control of the wheel immediately notice, and in both instances, you lose the ability to re-engage autopilot until your next drive. I watched some other videos on Teslas and see some comments of imperfections of Tesla and the tech, which I'm no expert to disagree with, but the Y performance has prevented at least one possibility of a crash so far. When the whole fam was in the car, we were exiting the highway and a motorbike was accelerating from the exit lane pretty far behind us. And if I had continued into that exit lane, there may have been a chance that I wouldn't have seen him or vice versa, and we could have collided. Basically, the car made the decision that danger was imminent and jerked the wheel left back into the open lane I was exiting as an emergency. It had the biker highlighted in red and that the lane I was in was still available. I didn't get a great look at the computer as it happened, but I hadn't even seen the biker yet, so we considered it a benefit. When the car is not in motion, the cameras can also be used in Sentry Mode, which is pretty cool. I'm already looking out the windows at night when I hear strange noises, so now 4 of the cameras on the car can act as security. It will drain the battery a bit as it runs, and on the 120 volt charger, it was cutting about 20% of the charging speed. And if you're looking to buy an EV, you should figure out the best options for charging ahead of time. I've been doing electrical work for years and wanted to see how much the 120 volt could get us overnight. And I knew that we could hit up a supercharger if needed. But after a couple of nights and only getting 40 to 50 miles added back on with the 15 amp outlet, I could tell this wasn't going to work. It's sort of like when you keep forgetting to plug your phone or smartwatch in overnight and you wake up to start at 12% charge. So I didn't necessarily have the range anxiety people may get driving around, but I just felt unsatisfied knowing it was charging inefficiently. So I looked into getting the best level 2 charging, and in our garage, I knew there was an older NEMA 1430 outlet for an older dryer. However, I didn't know that the previous owner rerouted that power to finish the garage. So due to my foot injury, I called a buddy to reorganize the outlets, and lucky for us, there was another 20 amp circuit out in the garage to run the rest of the outlets, giving me back the 1430 for the Tesla. So I went from 4 to 6 miles per hour in charging up to 20 to 22 miles, and now we can simply set the charge to midnight, and when I wake up, the car is at 90% ready to handle the day's commute. Having the even larger 1450 plug added would have required new wiring from the breaker panel, which was about as far away as you can imagine from the garage, and knowing a lot about wiring homes for electrical and low voltage, was not looking to do that if possible. After getting the adapter and charging taken care of, I made a simple call to the gas and electric that took 2 hours on hold, and they have us on an EV plan that cuts the 12 to 6 a.m. rate by 75% for a $16 service charge each month. And I'm good with that. Doing the math on mileage over gas in California, I was only saving about 50% before the changes due to much of the charge time being mid-peak and having to hit up a supercharger here and there. Now it's costing me about 10% of what it would if I were driving with gas. And it's not even comparing apples to apples. Prior to the Tesla, I was driving my F-150 that gets about 14 mpg to drop the kids off at school. So there is money to be saved on gas besides the overall cleaner use of energy. And as of now, I've had very little issues with the car. A couple of small gaps in the exterior that I may get looked at, and for some reason in Sentry Mode, my lights will flash even though I don't select that option, but there haven't been much other issues. The only thing I'm still thinking about is if I really needed to get the Y performance over the long range. I mean, 0 to 60 in the time of 3.5 seconds to 4.8 seconds is not much of a difference. And even 4.8 is faster than most cars on the road. And with the long range, you get the extra mileage out of the charge due to different tires. And I love the 21-inch rims and Pirelli tires, but the rims stick out pretty far past the tire on this Y Performance. It doesn't take much to scratch them, which has happened twice already because of how it's exposed and because there isn't any sensor or camera that helps when coming to the curb. My old BMW 550 had cameras under the mirrors that helped on all sides, keeping it away from the curb. But again, we should just err on the side of caution, and a little buff job will get this looking acceptable. So overall, this has been a very good experience. Generous test driving, easy purchasing process, exciting to take delivery and learn about the car on the fly. It's got the features and the speed I was after, and a few surprises, and I'm sure even more to come. And now that I have the charger and electric plan upgraded, I'm looking forward to quitting gas for good. So what else is there? I would like to get some feedback from you. Please let me know if there's any questions as a potential buyer, and I'll be sure to answer them the best I can. And if you're a Tesla expert, let me know if I missed anything important that people need to know about in the process. And make sure to let me know of any and all consumer products you'd like reviewed so I can get to the most popular. I know Samsung is sending me the M8 monitor, and I have the GoPro Hero 10 that we shot a lot of this footage with, so comment below. Make sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and set the notification bell to all, as Be the Consumer is just getting started, and I will see you on the next one.